he says that he was born in 1998. I mean, there's no, independent data. You've got to. I always tell people, you only know what you are told, right? So you can't verify the story from within the story. You have to look outside the story to find evidence for it. But you're right. He did not have very much, I'll say, respect or goodwill towards a lot of people.
He basically thought we were spoiled children, right?
In general, yes. In general. But, and this was really interesting. And anybody who's gone through John's posts with any kind of real interest will see John's humanity come through in those posts. It's really incredible that, yes, you're right. He did have a disdain for the way we went about our day, or the way we wasted food or water, electricity, or the way we dressed. And he mentioned going to church in shorts. All these things that he found us lacking in. But what's incredible is the whole reason he was here in 2000 in the first place. And that was because he kind of, I won't say fell in love, but he grew to appreciate us and like us. And as I don't know about a culture, but these individuals, they became real to him. Because remember, he was born in 1998. And he started his mission in 2036. So we are merely a history page in his book. He never really experienced this time in a personal sense. So when you're reading through a history book, you make all these judgments about the people, the people during the French Revolution, as if you know those people. You don't know those people. You just know what's written on the page. And those people during the French Revolution, or John Locke or whoever, whatever historical, Genghis Khan, perfect example, Genghis Khan. Take Genghis Khan. If you read the book on Genghis Khan, he was, a conqueror, a hard warrior, et cetera, but you don't know the man. I mean, on a personal level, what if you could go back, let's say with the intention of ridding the world of Genghis Khan, and then you get to know the guy and you find out that, hey, he loves his people. And I'm by no means trying to advocate for Genghis Khan. I'm just giving it as an example of what happened, it seems to me, what happened to John. Is that John came back first to 75 and then forward to 98 and 2000, where he was here to try to prepare his family and the people close to him for the coming disasters that he knew were going to happen. Because he started having feelings for the people that he met on this timeline.
Hey, you guys are wonderful. You should know that, and you're changing life even in the future. We'll be right back with... And welcome back to Radio Freeman. TR?
Yes.
You've been attacked a lot for making this book, and I'm a little curious as to what led you to sign it anonymous.
Well, I was lucky in that in this respect, I was not involved in the original posts, because when John was originally posting, there was a whole spectrum of people. There were people that supported him and believed him. There were people that remained non-committal, and there were people that disbelieved him and actually attacked him in a rhetorical sense, attacked him, and were very outspoken. It was incredible at the slings and arrows that John suffered while he was posting, and even afterwards. And later, after John left in March of 2001, of course, discussion continued up until today, and it's incredible also just how vehement these people attack anybody who happens to support John and his assertions, whether they do research into him or not, whether they just have a feeling that, this rings true, or maybe they did the hard research but never really published it or went public with it. And I just as soon not go into it. Because what happens is that the messenger he always loses his head. And I have no interest in defending myself or defending my past or my training or anything that would come under attack. There's one person that was involved in the posts and supported John and argued for him in support of him, and this person got death threats because it was thought that this person had some inside knowledge into the Titer story, and that the world is a big place and the internet goes everywhere. So you have people from all over the world who are aware of the John Titer story, and this person received actual death threats from somewhere in the world from people who wanted to know that inside information. Laws were broken, privacy laws were broken to find out the identity of these people. And I'm sorry, but I'm just a regular guy living a regular life who happened to stumble upon something that was true. And I'm just trying to get the word out. And if I were to sign my name to it, one, I would become a target for any unwanted attention, either official or unofficial attention. And then the story gets lost, because if let's say I sign my name to it, and suddenly I become a target of scrutiny when I'm not the focus of the book at all. Right. And when I first started talking about the book, I had already established a cutout persona for myself to be able to post anonymously online talking about the stuff that I had found and the book that was going to be coming out soon. And immediately, I was researched and investigated, and people were trying to find out who I was, which was, I knew it was going to happen, but within a minute of posting, people were trying to ascertain who I was. And in my opinion, that really speaks to the motives of them than anything else. Why are they attacking the messenger when, in all reality, the important part of the story is it true and what evidence do you have? But yeah, I would just as soon get on with my life, once the book is done, and I can move on and prepare myself and try to get others to prepare just as I am. That hey, this guy spoke the truth, and I have the evidence to show it. I suggest you get a gas can yourself.
I hear you right there, and I completely understand why you would want to do that. That makes a lot of sense, and actually, the focus is John Titer. So let's have a look at John Titer's story. We're talking about a man that was living in 2036. Now, just from my own research, that was when Apophis was supposed to strike planet Earth. But that's just a little side note.
No, I'll say this, that it is interesting, because it's kind of like when you buy a new car that you've never seen on the road before, but now that you have the new car, you start seeing it everywhere. Well, now that you know these little data points in the John Titer story, you're noticing them now. And that is not for nothing, I'll say that.
Well, so what was it like for him? What was 2036, and what did he have to say about his life and his existence?
Well, first of all, I've got to thank the people who asked the questions in the beginning, because there were some folks on there who took him seriously, or at least gave him the benefit of the doubt. And every time I talk about John, I thank them. Because if it wasn't for the people asking the good questions, whether they thought he was for real or not, it was just more information for everybody to be able to look back on 10 years later. And first and foremost, my thanks go out to them. But John described, and people asked that very same question when he was posting, what's life like in 2036? And because life was so fundamentally different, because John described life as being so fundamentally different than what it was in 2000, that he really kind of had to give a quick history from his perspective, obviously, lesson on how they got to where they were in 2036. In 2036, John described a life much more rural than it is now. And he said he couldn't imagine living farther than 100 miles from his parents. A lot of businesses now were mainly mom and pop, and much more agrarian, I would say.
Sounds like good life to me.
Well, there. I'm with you on that. There's something to be said for that. And anyway, so he mentioned medicine in 2036, and he said he likened medicine and education to that of the 1800s or the Old West. So if you and your listeners could probably think in that context, that's what 2036 looks like according to John Titor. John Titor looks like America in the 1800s. Right now, much more self-sufficient, much more rural. He did say that yes, we do have high technologies. He mentioned they had plasma TVs in 2000. He mentioned they had plasma TVs. He mentioned that yes, they do have a type of cell phone that works through the internet. They had localized energy production and all these kind of things. So imagine the Old West with ice cubes and TV sets.
Right.
That might
sounds like my dream.
Well, anywhere where you can get ice cubes in the middle of Arizona, right? So, anyhow, the way they got there, though, was in the coming years. John described how a civil war was to break out, and remember, he was saying this in 2000 and 2001. John mentioned that, described how there was going to be a civil war in 2005, the Second American Civil War. And he described this civil war as between, because obviously people are going to think it's between the North and the South, because that's what our history is, or state versus state. And John described that it was not that way at all. As a matter of fact, the Second American Civil War, according to John, is more about personal rights and personal liberties than anything else. And the two combatants, so to speak, were described by him as the country versus the city. Now, there were several people online who automatically jumped to the conclusion of a Republicans versus Democrats kind of civil war, and John was quick to say, "Look, no, that's not what I said. It was, cities versus," and he was being purposely evasive there, and I can understand that. But he wanted to make clear that it was not necessarily a political party versus political party kind of thing. Anyway, this civil war goes on for about 10 years or so until 2015, when Russia launches a surprise nuclear strike according to John, against Europe, the United States, and China. And by doing this, because you can imagine that because the war lasted for so long, I would point out to everybody that, look, it's essentially the military, supporting the president at the time, because the president is obviously the commander-in-chief. The president is waging war against his own citizens, and he's using the national army to do this. What's really intriguing in the story is that it lasted 10 years, and people even questioned him on this. Is like, how is it possible that with the national army, the American army, having access to tanks and jeeps and all the rest, how is it possible that a rebellion could withstand and have the staying power for 10 years? And his answer was really intriguing. His answer was not necessarily, oh, we had bigger guns or we had tanks too. His answer was, sometimes it's more important what you're fighting for than what you're fighting with. And this was a theme that John came back to over and over and over again. And it was basically his love of the United States, the Constitution that founded the nation, and personal and individual rights and liberties. And he said that the way that the Civil War kicked off was actually in response to growing, quote, Waco-type events over the past several years prior to 2005. And finally, it just broke out into real civil war. That's how John tells the story. Now, in 2015, when Russia launches this